Well, hello. So the other day, I was invited to play a board game. It's called Twilight Imperium. If you've ever heard of it, you know what it is. Basically, it's a spacefaring game that a group can play. The friends that I were playing with, expected to last about like 10 hours. So it's one of those games. But anyways, I was looking for a project, and when I got invited to this, I was thinking, oh, you know what? This is going to be a good opportunity to maybe make something that I can bring and everybody can use. And so I decided to make a dice tray. And basically, a dice tray is something that you can use to have a designated place to roll your dice and make sure that nothing goes off the table, or if you're playing an intricate game, you don't move any pieces or disturb the game board. So that's what I'm doing here, and I decided to grab some scrap plywood that I had laying around. I believe this is hardwood plywood. I think it's oak. And cut, the four strips here to do the box. And I had limited tools for this. I don't have my table saw set up, so I was kind of relegated to using just my circular saw and a few hand tools and this bandsaw that I have set up as well. So that's what I used to build this. It's kind of a crude build, just because I'm not very practiced at fine woodworking. I'm trying to get there, and this is kind of one step along that journey. What you're gonna see me do later on is actually gonna be my first time cutting a box joint. I decided to do this box joint, and my initial idea was to go ahead and mark everything out and take a flush cut saw to it and try to cut these fingers. And I realized about right here in a second that cutting this by hand was going to be absolute chore. I'm not very practiced with these types of hand tools. So I decided to abandon this and go to my bandsaw. And I think that was a smarter decision on my part. However, I did not have any type of jig or even a sled that I was using to cut these things. And they work. They were just poorly fitting. So I'm doing the glue up here, and I'm realizing in this glue up that, oh man, things are not quite fitting square and right. And, even though my measurements and everything, my initial measurements were accurate, I had a few mistakes along the way that made things a little bit off square, but that's okay. What I did next is just take those internal measurements to cut the floor or the bottom out and go ahead and put that together. And once I knew that everything was going to fit okay, I went ahead and sorry about the dog barking in the background. That's every video. He's always outside howling. We have a beagle. He's great, but not for filming. I decided I was happy with this and was just going to sand it down, and I wanted a kind of a rough finish to this because it was rough in nature. Like I said, I'm not very practiced at making fine woodworking projects or anything like that. I'm getting there, but I'm fairly early on in my journey, so I get this fitting together okay. And the bottom, I had initially planned to rabbet out where this bottom was going to fit, like kind of inset into the walls. But I quickly realized that I didn't have the tools set up to be able to do that effectively and efficiently. And this was actually quite a quick build. I didn't have a lot of time to work on this project. I was just kind of doing it after hours, the week of the game night, and so had to have everything finished and wrapped up by that weekend. So I decided just to glue and brad nail everything together. You see I'm hammering one of the nails that went a little bit wayward on the journey, but that bottom is actually going to get a leather, a black leather, suede leather that's going to go in there as an insert. So I decided to, with that rough nature of the wood, just go as dark as possible. So I grabbed my ebony stain here, and look at those bubbles. It's great. Grabbed my ebony stain here and just heavily brushed on and wiped away that stain. The idea here was I wanted it to be a rough stain. I didn't really want it to go truly as dark as it could possibly go with an ebony. And that way that wood just kind of pops through and stuff, even, and it's not as uniform, because I actually like the grain of this wood quite a lot. And so here I'm cutting that insert out, and my wife kind of changed my mind on the order of operations here, because I was initially going to glue in this insert and then tape it off and spray on a finish. And she was like, well, why don't you just sand it on and spray on that finish and then glue it on immediately after. That way you don't have to worry about taping anything. It's like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. So that's what I'm doing here. And for the most part, it worked out. And it would have worked out if I hadn't rushed things. And this is where I'm rushing things right now. What I'm spraying on is just a spray polyacrylic finish, or polyurethane finish. And the stain itself had not cured fully. I thought it had. I had sanded it down, and then I was wearing gloves the whole time, and as I took the switch gloves out to spray that on, I realized that it was a little tacky, and so I sanded it down a little bit more, got it kind of smooth and stuff, and figured, you know what, I think this will still cure. Well, lesson learned, it didn't really, and so I had to change directions. But here I'm using barge cement, and I walked away when I first started using this because I had on a paper respirator mask, so just meant for like wood dust and stuff. That is not sufficient for barge cement. This stuff is pretty intense. I ended up walking in and grabbing a full respirator, and so I let that dry for a few minutes, and then laid in that insert. And I'm realizing, as I'm laying this in and stuff, that the insert fit well and everything, but I'm realizing, oh man, I'm gonna have a tough time if I'm gonna do a different finish on this thing. So what ended up happening is I did not take this to game night. I wish I could have, but it's just wasn't in the cards. So here I am the day after that game night, putting on, after I had sanded this thoroughly and got it all smooth and dry and set, I'm putting on a polyacrylic, and that's a fast curing polyacrylic. It worked so much better, but I am happy with the way this turned out. It is quite crude still. There's some imperfections in it, but it's for me, and I enjoyed it. So this is some slow-mo of dice rolls, and enjoy. Thanks for watching the video.